Hello, can you hear me? I'm sorry, I think I was muted or something. I was saying hello, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar, a webinar about the innovative process for homegrown harmonized standards that is taking place today for you. I hope you can all hear me well and that you are all able to follow the presentation. My name is Els. I will be moderating the webinar in the background. I think that is mentioned on the next slide, please. Yes, exactly. So I'm moderating the webinar in the background and taking care of questions or any technical issues you might have. I would like to inform you too that you're all muted today, meaning that you cannot speak out loud or raise your questions, but I invite you to use the Q&A panel of the Zoom webinar to submit your questions. The speakers will go through the presentation and then afterwards have a look at the Q&A and reply as many as possible questions. Should your question remain unreplied today during the presentation, please bear in mind that we create a Q&A report that we make available afterwards via the website. The webinar has been recorded, so you will receive the recording in your inbox later today together with this presentation. So I think without further ado, if we can go on to the next slide, my colleagues Frédéric, MLANAO and Alberto SIMEONI are sitting on the edge of the chair to start this presentation. So please, guys, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Els. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. We hope to be clear and concise for explaining you this brand new process for harmonized standards.
So we will turn off the camera to save some bandwidth, and we will proceed with the presentation. So the agenda for today, we will start with an introduction on the innovative process, explain a bit the context. Then we will explain why this process has been developed. Then we will go to what is new in this process compared to the actual process for harmonized standard. And then the part 4, very important part, we will explain from an operational point of view how to interact and how to work within the innovative process. And then the last part will be we will share some key takeaways, some key elements to remember following the presentation. So before starting, a first slide explaining some terms we will use a lot during the presentation. So harmonized standard, I think everybody knows it already. TBO stands for technical body or TC and technical body officers. CCMC, you all know it. QC is important for this innovative process as it stands for the quality check. This is for lack of compliance. I think for the others, you know most of them. This is new, the last one. Sorry, the last one, VHK consultants are the kind of HAS consultant for working for DG Energy for everything related to eco-design. So let's start. The innovative process has been developed based on the outcomes of the ESO's EC Task Force on Timely European Standard, on discussions within Strategy 2030 Project 1, and as well within DT Working Group 12 and DT Working Group 14. It was developed based on the outcomes actually of pilot projects that were run within the ESO's EC Task Force last year. The innovative process applies to homegrown harmonized standards, and it will be applied to new work items, launched for approval as of October 1st. We will come back to that later. I said it applies to homegrown harmonized standards because for parallel work, for ISO and IEC work, it's still under discussion. So for now, the current HAS process applies for parallel work.
Then let's start with the BT decision that was taken by correspondence last Wednesday. And I hope all of you received last Friday the full BT decision, including the annexes, so that you can have a full documentation. I think it's good to go together the BT decision to understand exactly what it stipulates. BT, noting the persistent difficulties of having complete assessments by the consultant of the European Commission on harmonized standards candidate for citation in the official journal, the need to define an ad hoc process for harmonized standards subject to the EC consultant's assessment, since these standards represent challenges completely different from the development process of ordinary hENs, the outcomes of the ISO European Commission Task Force on Pan-European Standards, which validated the innovative process during its final meeting in July 2023, and the discussions in Project 1 under Strategy 2030, timely citation of harmonized standards, and also discussion in the CENELEC Group 12 harmonized standards and European regulatory framework, the principles, criteria, operational aspects of this new process, like in the annexes of the BT decision, that the implementation of the changes, the necessary tools, will not be completed by 1st October 2023, and therefore a two-step approach is necessary to allow the start of this new process as of 1st October 2023, the impact on the planning principles according to the flexible standards process, and in particular the need to devote more time under stage A. Then BT agreed with the principles, criteria, operational aspects of the innovative process as defined in the annexes of this decision, decided that the process will be systematically applied to all homegrown new work items for harmonized standards which are intended to be submitted to the EC consultant assessment, which will be launched for approval as of 1st October 2023. So the starting line is new work items, launch for approval from 1st of October. So not approved as of, launch for approval as of 1st October. Invited CCMC to perform quality checks on inquiry and formal vote drafts on ongoing projects that did not reach stages 3099 and 4599 upon TB request. Awaiting the full implementation of the necessary IT tools, recommended technical bodies to plan a duration of at least 50 weeks up to 3099, and the remaining 80 weeks under stage E, taking into account that a 9-month tolerance is still possible under stage E. We will go in detail on each of these sentences. Request CCMC to initiate the necessary developments, organize in due time the necessary trainings, technical body officers, and update those pages accordingly. Invited members to instruct accordingly their technical body officer as well as their national expert and delegates to ensure the successful implementation of the new process. So this process applies to the homegrown harmonized standards, which are intended to be submitted to the EC consultants assessment, which means the famous HS consultants, DG Grow, and also the consultants managed by DG Energy. It's a different firm, it's a different subcontractor, it's not Ernst Young, and these are the VHK consultant. So we had agreement of DG Energy to apply the same process also for eco-design standards. I hope this can be a positive news for all of you that work both under the HS regime and the VHK regime. It applies to those homegrown harmonized standards that will be launched for the new work item approval as of 1st October 2023. Therefore, it means that it does not apply to any homegrown harmonized standards for which the new work item proposal was approved before 1st October 2023, or any homegrown harmonized standards which is not intended for submission to the consultants. Now, why are we specifying this? Because on the term harmonized standards, we can have, I would say, a long discussion. The regulation 1025 defines harmonized standards as two standards requested via standards request that are intended for the union harmonization legislation. These can be citation in the official journal. Some of them are assessed by the consultants, some others are not. So this process applies when there is an assessment of the consultant.
So why the innovative process? This process has been developed and thought because of the challenge to get a compliant assessment. So we have checked the figures of compliant assessment for the previous HAS contract and the beginning of the new HAS contract. So during the previous HAS contract, from 2018 until 2021, there was an average of around 30% of compliant outcome for all stages, of course. If you take the very last stages, formal votes and pub assessment, back then it was pub assessment, it was a bit above 50%, I think. And under the new contract, since January 2023, this figure is even lower, as 16%, we have 16% of compliant outcome for all stages. If we take only the last stages, being formal vote assessment and last confirmatory assessment, then we would be around 23% for the last HAS contract. Therefore, we thought that substantial changes are needed to help address this challenge to get a compliant assessment. Those are the main reasons for lack of compliance. Those are statistics given by Ernst & Young, the HAS contractor, and they made a study for the last HAS contract. So since August 2022 until May 2023, they have checked what were the main reasons for lack of compliance. And if we look at the reasons that are that have the higher percentage of finding, we see reasons related to essentially normative references, issues with the Annex Z, and the technical content of the standard that is not in line or contradicts the European law. So therefore, we think that by changing the process, by introducing new elements, and by starting early in the development process, we think that by doing that, we will have higher chances of reaching a compliant assessment at the end of the development. And so starting earlier in the process, meaning introducing the concept of major drafts. I will come back to that later. And then the pre-formal vote assessment is a new element as well. And as well, a very important new element is the CCMC Quality Check, but same thing, we will come back to that. And again, the innovative process applies only to homegrown harmonized standards, which are submitted to EC consultants' assessments. Now we will start to see what changes, what are the novelties of this innovative process. So the innovative process is mainly based on two main pillars. So I was saying earlier, the mature draft concept. The mature draft is a draft ready for inquiry from the perspective of the technical body. The mature draft in this innovative process, the mature draft assessment is mandatory. In the innovative process, there's still a possibility to circulate within the TC the first working draft, but the optional first working draft assessment, is not possible anymore. For the CCMC Quality Check, the goal of the CCMC Quality Check is to help technical bodies identify elements in the draft or in the annexes that, if not taken care of correctly, could potentially lead to a lack of compliance assessment. The CCMC Quality Check will be used will be done with the common checklist that will be used as a support document. We had a webinar in end of June, I think, about the common checklist. We will put a link to it at the end of the webinar. And so this new common checklist replaces the old harmonized standard checklist that was mandatory. The new common checklist will be mandatory as of October 1st as well. And as well, this new common checklist will be used by the HAS consultant as well. So now, when the HAS consultant will assess a draft, they will use the common checklist. And as well, when they deliver their assessment report, the common checklist will be used as the supporting document.
Yes, I see already some questions in the chat. So the word homegrown, we use the word homegrown to indicate those standards that are developed within CEN-TCs or CENELEC TCs or CENELEC JTC, and which do not have any relation with the ISO and IC standards. So are not projects in parallel and are not adoption. So these are pure standard, is basically the standard that you found with the acronym EN, then a number, and of course the year of publication. So as part of the documentation that was sent to you last Friday, this is Annex 4. And these present the full process in one slide. I will try to go slowly on this chart, and then Frédéric will go in detail of what are all the actions and steps that are supposed to take place when advancing in the chart. So let's start from the beginning. 1099 is the approval of the work item. Of course, you know that in CEN, this is a TC decision, a CIB ballot is launched for the approval of the new work item. CENELEC is, at the moment, still a final BT decision. And for JTC, it is a decision of the CENELEC technical boards. So when the CENELEC technical board will approve the CENELEC work item, then we will have the 1099, where the CEN and CENELEC technical boards will approve the JTC new work item, then we will have the 1099 for JTC new work items. The part in light blue is for the technical committee, and of course, its structure. So the working groups to work is stage A, and also the light part is in stage E. Stage A goes from the creation of the work item until the delivery or inquiry, while the stage E will start with the closure of the inquiry until the delivery to CCMC for the editing before formal vote. The principles of the flexible process, stipulate that technical committee, when launching the new work item, can decide per each work item how to allocate the maximum 68 weeks that are available for the drafting of, for the TC work when drafting a standard. So some of you with some age of experience in CEN and CENELEC, you will remind that the traditional way was to split the 68 weeks in 34 under stage A and 34 under stage E. These for homegrown standards has become flexible. So the technical committee can decide, can customize per each work item the duration they need under stage A and E. Now, the TC so the work item is approved. The technical bodies start working on the standard. The first working draft submission, of course, is still possible. It is a very important milestone in the standards development. So the first working draft circulation is possible. So 2060, code 2060 still takes place. The difference is that for harmonized standards, the assessment will not take place. We are not going to request an assessment for the first working draft. After the circulation of first working draft, the working group continue working on the document. And when the document is deemed to be ready for inquiry, this will be submitted to CCMC. Not for the editing, translation, and assessment like in the past, but for a new step, quality check. So K in yellow is a new step, is the quality check from CCMC. So when the draft is deemed to be mature draft for inquiry, this will be submitted to CCMC, but will undergo quality check. Quality check from CCMC should last max 3 weeks. This will come back to the technical committee, a working group, to address comments of CCMC. The improved draft then will be sent to CCMC again, and we will submit it to the first assessment. So the first assessment is no more the first working draft assessment, is the assessment on mature draft, and is mandatory. Remember, before the first working draft assessment was optional. There is no longer any first working draft assessment, but there is a mandatory assessment on the mature draft. Of course, Ernst & Young, the consultant, should respect the 5 weeks duration for the assessment. Then the draft goes back to the technical committee, which will address the comment of the consultant. So you will see this is basically for 2 times. Technical committee has to stop and look into the quality check of CCMC and review the draft. And then after the consultant report, they have to stop, look at the report, and include the improvements from the as in the assessment report before finalizing the document. The document will go back to CCMC or be editing like today. Then will be a translation. Then there will be a second phase that Frédéric will explain. There will be an inquiry assessment, but it's different from today because the first mandatory assessment already took place here. Therefore, this will be an inquiry confirmatory assessment, a confirmation that how the TC has revised the draft has been correct. And then starts the 12 weeks of inquiry. At the closure of the inquiry, the document will come back to the TC. Again, light blue, stage E. The technical body will consider the comments during national inquiry, the draft, the assessment report after the inquiry confirmatory assessment. If it is not possible to skip the formal vote, and I think this is not the case, this will not be the case for a while, considering the figure, the percentage of positive assessment, as Frédéric just explained, then technical body will work in order to get the formal vote draft. And here again, if the formal vote is not skipped, the improved draft will undergo quality check of CCMC. The technical body will revise the draft. Of course, these should be new elements that have been introduced after the inquiry. And then there will be a mandatory pre-formal vote assessment. as you can see, we are well before 4599. 4599 is the submission for a formal vote, but CCMC currently will edit the documents, will launch for translation, and then in parallel, we'll launch also the formal vote assessment, and then we'll vote. In the new process, these assessments, the formal vote assessment has been brought forward. That's why this will be called the pre-formal vote assessment. After this assessment, the technical body will revise again the draft in order to consider the comments of the consultant. And then there is an last optional assessment, which is the LCA, like today, last confirmatory assessment. And these will be explained in detail also later. So, stage A, before inquiry, we will have quality check, mandatory mature draft assessment. Stage E, after inquiry, we'll have quality check and pre-formal vote assessment. Now, why it is important to pay attention when planning the time in the new work item proposal? So when you will launch a new project, which is intended to be homegrown harmonized standards, to be submitted to the assessment of the consultants, it is important to pay attention to the fact that basically with this process, there are 17 weeks added in the stage A for quality check and the assessment and time for TC to work, and possibly 25 weeks that will be added under stage E, quality check, pre-formal vote assessment, and LCA assessment if needed. So this means that there is an impact on planning, and this is the part on the part on the BT decision concerning how to plan the new work items. So let's start with the CEN, because of course the new work item approval has 3 different processes. So with CEN, so this is for the CEN TC secretaries in this meeting. I guess that you are familiar with the new working area. Today, when you create a new work item, the first duration that is proposed is the old way, is the traditional old way. So is 34 weeks for stage A, see 17 and 17, because this includes the circulation of first working draft. So it's 34 weeks under stage A, and the other 34 under stage E. Then, of course, you know that you can customize, so you can edit by clicking here on the calendar. You can customize these as you prefer. Now, what is the recommendation of BT? Recommendation of BT is to set at least 50 weeks for stage A. So be sure that here it's written no more 17, but at least 25 and 25. Can be 26. 26 can be even 30 and 30, even 30, 31 and 31. 31 is a 62. And here we remain 6 weeks, because you know that under flexible process, let's say, I would say the second condition is that the time under stage E should be at least 6 weeks. So it should be 68 in total, max 68 in total, and at least 6 here. So you can plan until 31, and 31 means 62, and 6 under E. So BT recommends to set at least 50 weeks this part. For the second part, of course, 18 weeks will not be enough. But you can still use the tolerance. In addition, if you deliver earlier than expected, so you fix 50 weeks, but you can deliver in 40 weeks, the 10 weeks that you have gained will be added under stage E. Now for CENELEC, it's the same principle. So the same principle. It's just that today in CENELEC, still the new work item form has to be used. The Word file has to be used. So this is how we look like the part regarding the target dates. And of course, you will add here 50 weeks up to inquiry and 18 weeks to formal vote. Again, the BT decision is at least 50 weeks. So you can put 55, 56 until 62, because here the minimum under formal vote 4599 must be 6. Same discussion for JTCs. You know that for JTCs, you are going to use the CEN new work item form if that work item is under the CEN work item lead. Of course, you have to use the Word file, because the working area in CEN is not for JTC. So JTC, you need to use the Word file. Of course, you will add 50 weeks, 10 weeks. And of course, same discussion, if for JTCs, the work item lead is for CENELEC, you're going to use the CENELEC new work item form. You will add at least 50 weeks here and 18 weeks there. So, as I said, completing in advance stage A will de facto extend the duration of stage E by the time saved before inquiry. So you set 50 weeks. If you deliver earlier, don't worry, that time will be added under stage E. This is one of the features of the flexible process. And also, you have a chance to review the planning. First of all, you can change the planning by using the one change option. So if you see that the 50 weeks is still not enough, then you can either go in the CEN working area for the CEN technical bodies, or request or send an email to data for the CENELEC work items or JTC work items, and request to change the allocation of weeks. So you can allocate more than 50 weeks if needed. In any case, you can still ask for a tolerance, both under stage A, and if not requested under stage A, you can request a tolerance under stage E. If you request already a tolerance under stage A, so 50 weeks plus one tolerance under stage A, you want to have a tolerance under stage E, then you will have to go to BT for BT decision, like current practice. Okay.
Thank you, Alberto. So I will jump in now to go more into the details of the innovative process. So Alberto mentioned it already earlier, but just to recap that there are still 4 assessments possible per work item. So the mature draft assessment, as Alberto was saying, that is mandatory. The inquiry confirmatory assessment that will take place only if the mature draft assessment is not compliant. Then on the formal vote stage, I would say there's the pre-formal vote assessment that is mandatory if the formal vote is not skipped. And then lastly, there's the possibility to have a last confirmatory assessment that is optional, but we hope that with this new innovative process and with the fact that we start very early in the development phase, all the work related to the assessment, we hope that this LCA will become exceptional, but it's still possible to use it in case. So how do we proceed? As we said earlier, we will have a 2-step approach for the implementation of the innovative process. We need the IT tools to be updated to take into account the innovative process. For example, the submission interface. Today, unfortunately, the IT tools are not ready for the innovative process. So that's why we will have a two-steps approach. So for now, we will have a manual exchange of documents between CCMC and the technical bodies. But later on, everything should go through the submission interface, for example. And so the IT tools will be updated, but it takes a bit of time for them to be updated. So for now, we will start doing manual work. And then later, when the tools are ready, we will redo a webinar and explain how the process works. So very first thing, the mature draft. When the mature draft is ready for the quality check, the technical body should send the mature draft together with the common checklist filled in and all the supporting documents to this email. So this email is the inbox of the new harmonized standard compliance team that was created in CENELEC almost 1 year ago. And the purpose of this team is to perform quality check and to support TCs with items related to harmonized standards in general and horizontal topics related to harmonized standards. So once these elements received, the CCMC quality check shall be performed within 15 working days. So it's 3 weeks. Something important to mention, if the common checklist is not included in the elements, the package will be rejected. So the common checklist shall be delivered together with the mature draft, the annexes, and all the supporting documents. So the CCMC quality check shall be performed in 3 weeks. Once the CCMC quality check done, the outcome of the quality check will be shared with the technical body officers for them to circulate eventually the outcome of the quality check within the work group. The technical body has 4 weeks to consider the CCMC quality check comments, and all comments related to IR3 shall be addressed. As well, it's recommended to address the comments related to the Annex Z and the normative references. As we saw in a previous slide, issues related to normative references and Annex Z are one of the main reasons for lack of compliance. So when the TC addresses the comments, the TC, the technical body, shall justify through the quality check checklist the comments not addressed. So the common checklist, sorry, the TC should justify the comments that are not addressed. So once the technical body sends to CCMC by email the updated draft and the annexes together still with the fill-in common checklist, then CCMC will request the mature draft to the HAS contractor, the mature draft assessment to the HAS contractor. So I recap here, the quality check is performed. CCMC goes back to the technical body with the outcome of the quality check. The technical body updates the drafts, taking into account the comments from the quality check. And then the technical body comes back to CCMC with the updated draft and annexes for the mature draft assessment request. When the mature draft assessment assessment report available, it will be shared with the technical body officers. The technical body secretary will receive an email that includes the assessment report as attachment when it is available. Following the mature draft assessment, if the mature draft assessment is compliant, then the technical body can deliver to CCMC the draft for inquiry through the submission interface. So for the quality check, we were going through the HSC inbox, but when the inquiry process starts, then we have to go through the submission interface. In case of lack of compliant assessment at major draft, then the technical body can call for a meeting with the HAS consultant if they need to understand the comments from the HAS consultant and discuss the comments. Then the technical body should address the comments from the HAS consultant, and once the comments are addressed and the draft updated, the technical body should deliver to CCMC still through the submission interface the updated draft, again, the filled-in common checklist, as well as the filled-in table of comments from previous assessment, as well as all the supporting documents. Then, when launching the translation, CCMC will request the inquiry confirmatory assessment to the HAS contractor. So it's this part here in the flowchart showed by Alberto earlier. So once the assessment requested, normally EY, the HAS contractor, has 35 days to deliver the assessment report. When the assessment report available, it will be shared with the technical body secretary. The technical body secretary will receive an email with the assessment report attached. The inquiry ballot won't be delayed in case of lack of compliant assessment at inquiry confirmatory assessment. We will see that for formal vote later, it will be different, but for the inquiry, whatever the outcome of the inquiry confirmatory assessment, the inquiry ballot won't be delayed. There's a possibility to skip the formal vote. I think that it's not done often, but there's still the possibility to skip the formal vote if, of course, the inquiry ballot is positive. If one of the previous assessments is compliant or conditional compliance, or the lack of compliance could be resolved. If there are no technical changes, and then the technical body can decide by simple majority to skip formal vote and to proceed to publication. Now let's focus on the formal vote part, so after the inquiry. So after the inquiry, the technical body will consider the inquiry comments and the HAS consultant report from previous stages. The drafts, together with the annexes, so the pre-formal vote draft, will be revised. Then what we call now the pre-formal vote draft, together with a fill-in common checklist and all the supporting annexes and documents, shall be sent to CCMC for the quality check at this email address. So the quality check, same thing, shall be performed within 15 working days, so that's 3 weeks. Once the quality check performed, the outcome of the quality check will be shared by email with the technical body officers that should circulate this internally inside the TC or the work group. The technical body has 4 weeks, same as in the previous stage, 4 weeks to consider the outcome of the CCMC quality check, and as well, all the comments related to IR3 shall be addressed. And the comments related to the Annex Z and the normative references are highly recommended as well to be carefully checked. And exactly the same thing as for the inquiry step, I would say. The technical body should justify through the common checklist the quality check comments not addressed. Here, there's a typo. It's not the quality check checklist, but it's the common checklist. So the technical body should use the common checklist to justify the quality check comments that were not addressed. So once the draft, the pre-formal draft and the annex updated, they shall be sent to CCMC with the filled-in common checklist and the assessment for the pre-formal vote and the assessment request. Then CCMC will request the pre-formal vote draft assessment to the host contractor. And then the same thing here, once the assessment report available, the TB secretary will receive an email with the assessment report included. Now, if the pre-formal vote draft assessment is compliant, then the technical body can deliver to CCMC the formal vote draft through the submission interface for the formal vote process to start. If the pre-formal vote draft is not compliant, then the standard development process is put on hold because we want to address all the issues related to the assessment before the formal vote process is started. The technical body should do its utmost to resolve any issues and ensure that the CCMC project manager or editor in charge of the work item and of the technical body is properly informed so that we know what's happening. And as well, following a lack of compliance, and it's the case for all the assessments, the technical body can call for a meeting with a HAS consultant, if necessary, to clarify the comments received during the assessment. So in case of lack of compliance at pre-formal vote draft, there are different options possible. And within 7 weeks after reception of the lack of compliant assessment, the technical body secretariat shall inform CCMC on the chosen way forward. And now we will see the different options following a lack of compliant assessment at pre-formal vote. So the option number 1 is no last confirmatory assessment. So this case would be that given the nature of the comments, the technical body can address the comments without requesting an LCA. So it could be minor editorial comments or minor comments related to the normative references, for example, but the technical body can decide that given the nature of the comments, the LCA is not needed. And so the technical body can proceed to formal vote. And to proceed to formal vote, the technical body should deliver through the submission interface to CCMC the reworked draft in track changes, showing that the changes in comparison with the draft at formal vote has been changed, and then that the HAS comments have been addressed. Same, the filled-in comment checklist is mandatory, and as well, the filled-in table of comments from previous assessments is needed to proceed. And as well, all the supporting documents, whatever annexes is needed. The option 2 is the LCA needed. Yeah, sorry, I will just come back to that. So here we will, as mentioned here above, we will not, CCMC will not request an LCA, and the formal vote process will proceed. The option 2 is an LCA needed, a last confirmatory assessment that is needed. In this case, the technical body will revise the draft and delivers to CCMC all the needed elements through the submission interface. In this case, the LCA has to be seen as a confirmatory assessment, like we had in the first step where we have the inquiry confirmatory assessment. This LCA has to be seen as a confirmatory assessment, saying that, yes, the TC, the technical body, has addressed the last comments from the pre-formal vote assessment. So again, same thing here, the technical body delivers through the submission interface the updated draft, with the track changes, the field-in command checklist, the field-in table of commands, and so on. And CCMC will request the LCA, the last confirmatory assessment, to the HAS contractor. If compliant assessment, the formal vote, ballot will resume. If the outcome of the last confirmatory assessment is not compliant, if it receives a lack of compliant assessment, then the technical body needs to agree on the way forward. That is, either revise the draft to address the final comments of the HAS consultants. There might be a way to address the final comments received during the LCA, or proceed with the two last options, options 3 or options 4, within 7 weeks in total. So now let's move to the option 3, that is exceptional. This one is considered as an exceptional option. I will take some water to drink. So in this case, if the comments of the resolution meeting between the HAS consultant and the technical body did not succeed to solve all the HAS consultant comments, if there's a big divergence, a meeting between the HAS consultant, the European Commission, and the technical body could be organized by CCMC. Alberto, maybe you want to jump in on this one?
Yes, this is one of the agreement in the task force with the European Commission. And this is a ad hoc meeting that can be organized when basically there is a really different understanding between, let's say, the standardizers and the consultants. When the consultant, after the report, after the resolution meeting, still have a different understanding of what we, the standardizers, mean, then this meeting can gives the opportunity to have a broad meeting with not only the sectoral policy officer, but the horizontal unit for standardization at the European Commission and the consultants. On the side of the standardizers, CCMC will be involved together with representatives of the technical committees and the working groups, relevant working group leadership. This is basically to, I would say, to address the behavior of a consultant where the consultant has a complete different understanding on legal matters than the one of the in the CENELEC technical bodies.
Thank you, Alberto. So, if following the HAS concerted group, so this group between the HAS consultant, the representative from the EC, and the technical body, if the remaining comments are resolved, then the technical body delivers to CCMC through the submission interface for the formal vote, still the same thing, all the different elements, the reworked draft in track changes, and the supporting documents, and the formal vote ballot will resume. If the remaining comments are not resolved, then it leaves only the option 4. Then for the option 4 is when there's no issues to resolve the comments related to a lack of compliance, a proposal on the way forward is to be circulated to BT for approval. And then we have 3 sub-options for option 4. Option 4A is to remove the link temporarily from the legislation, meaning to remove any link to legislation and Annex Z and initiate an amendment or a revision of the European standard in order to resolve the lack of compliance assessment. The option 4B, sorry, is still the same. I mean, it's more or less the same. It's to remove the link as well, but this time is permanently from the legislation. In this case, the European Commission will need to be informed, as there are chances that the work item is listed in a standardization request. And finally, option 4C would be to abandon the project. In this case, same thing, the European Commission will need to be informed.
Yes, and here we stop and we look at the questions because we don't want to go ahead without having you with us in what we have just explained. So I look at the questions. So keep on adding your questions in the Q&A, please. And I will try to go to question by question to clarify the several questions. So I propose that we go back. So the first question is on the planning. So we can go. Maybe it's better if you go out with this exactly. Please go back to the description of the process in one slide.
This one?
Yes, here we go. So first question from Matthias Meyer. It looks like the 17 weeks period starts at 25x6. You're right. You're right. But just to be clear with all of you, what we mean here is that reasonably the technical body can foresee only the period when they will be able to deliver the mature draft. So up to 25x6. And this is one of the improvements that we want to take. IT improvements we want to take. So to make you plan until 25x6. Today is not possible. Today you need to plan until 3099. What we are saying here is that once you deliver CCMC, the mature draft, this part in a way is out of your control. As Frédéric explained, you need to add max 3 weeks for CCMC quality check. So CCMC commit to deliver a quality check in 3 weeks. Then you have max 4 weeks for the technical committee to address the comments of CCMC. And here I can answer also a question from another colleagues that quite rightly say that how can CCMC judge the draft? Frédéric explained that the comments from CCMC will focus on aspects related to international regulation part 3. CCMC project manager do not have any knowledge, first of all, any technical knowledge and any knowledge related to legal elements. So we may give a comment on some aspects that go beyond IR3, but you are not bound to include those comments in the draft. On the other side, the BT decision when approving the process is very clear. IR3 aspects on which CCMC made comments, the technical body must include them in the standard. IR3 aspect, comments on IR3 aspect must be included in the draft. So, because otherwise quality check is useless, otherwise resources here at CCMC are useless, and all these is a useless exercise. There was a clear slide of Frédéric on this. IR3 comments from quality check on IR3 aspects must be included in the draft by the working group. legal and technical comments from CCMC can be neglected. Of course, in some exceptional cases, some project manager here may have already experienced, maybe already came across the same element and experience on, and knows what would be the reaction of the consultant, so can help you, but you are not bound to include. Then I said 3 weeks for the quality check, 4 weeks for the technical body to address those comments. Then we expect to receive a new draft for the assessment. The assessment, we hope that is max 5 weeks from the consultant. And then you have 4 weeks to address the comments of the consultant. So if you add 3 and 4, 5 and 3, yeah, exactly. So mature draft quality check 3 weeks, TC to consider 4 weeks, CCMC to submit a draft, assessment 5 weeks, TC consider a revised draft, sorry, is 5 weeks. So the total is 3, 4, 5 is 17 weeks. This is what we mean. To reply to another question of Javier Emilio Valencia. How many time do we have from 1099 to the new stage 2599? So from here to here. So BT recommends 50 weeks. 50 weeks is from 1099 to 3099. So if this new part takes up to 17 weeks, it means that you have 33 weeks, okay? 33 from 1099 to the mature draft delivery, 33. Plus 17, then you have the 50. As I said, the IT tools, the improvements are required in order for you to plan until there, because this is the mature draft submission, the key, the milestone for you now. Is no more the 3099 is the document for inquiry, is this mature draft, okay? So is 33 plus 17. Since the BT duration is a recommendation and the TC does not want to set to 50 weeks, this period, they can reduce it. They can have it 30 weeks. If it's 30 weeks, then will be 13 weeks until here, and then 17 weeks until there. That's why the big decision has been taken, because you need to add these 17 weeks of possible, well, not possible, of de facto stop and go. What will be challenging for you as technical body officer, as soon as you deliver the mature draft, fix also a meeting where they can, so at that moment, fix already the meeting where you plan to revise the draft based on the quality check. And the same goes here. Maybe even at the time of the submission of the mature draft, you can already foresee a first meeting, 3 weeks after the delivery, because we have 3 weeks, and then +4 for you to work on it, +5 here, you can already fix this meeting. So 2 meetings to be fixed as soon as you deliver the quality check. Then, so the question from Javier has been answered. Dennis Milianico, don't you think it's challenging to add at least 4 additional steps without extending the 68 weeks to draft a standard? Yes, we think it's very challenging, and it will be a serious risk of be very tight with the deadlines, with the deadlines of the standards in the standard request. But today, all what we have today, we have a lot of documents stuck before formal vote, and it's a mess, and it's not possible to work like this. Today, in the current system, we have all documents stuck here. They are late. I see that also our colleague Gonzalo, in charge of the account manager for also production unit, can tell you all the story that we have so many delays. So the current system is not working both for the delays and both because we have most of the assessment are negative. So it's not working under two.
So really the idea of the innovative process is to, instead of like we do today, wait until the end to put a lot of effort to try to reach a compliant assessment. The idea is to really put a lot of effort at the beginning. So indeed, it will take more time at the beginning. But we think that by starting very early in the development, so by having mandatory major draft assessments and by introducing the new CCMC quality check, it kind of a double blades. And we think that by having that in place, again, early, putting a lot of efforts early in the development process, it will help at the end to have a compliant assessment at the end and to avoid having projects that are blocked before the formal vote. So a lot of efforts at the beginning, more time probably at the beginning. It's not probably, it's surely more time at the beginning to help have a smooth end of a development process at the end. That's the purpose.
Yes, thank you, Frédéric. So, Anthony Hirrain, it appears that this process takes up to 6 weeks away from the available development time. Can you confirm? I think, unfortunately, these may take more time away from development time, but for a good reason, because the quality check can help you to improve the standard from IR3 point of view, and the assessment on the mature draft. So at this stage, just before inquiry, you should see this assessment as an enrichment from the consultant on the legal content, well, on the technical content linked to legal requirements in the draft. For instance, Annex Z, how to draft a complete Annex Z, for sure CCMC PMs cannot help you with that. I mean, we'll do our best, but the technicality, well, the legal, also the legalistic aspect of this specific product family, what kind of essential requirements should fulfill, we don't know it. The consultant know it. Will give you a comment here, and here the technical body will include this element. So we expect the Annex Z to be very, very advanced here. And so to go to inquiry, to send to inquiry a really improved draft, both from IR3, thanks to CCMC, and the legal aspect, thanks to this mature draft assessment. Of course, in the long term, we don't expect in the short or medium term. The idea is also to skip the formal vote, because if here you already tackle legal aspects, IR3 aspect, then you have a confirmatory assessment during inquiry that what you have worked here in these after the first assessment, what you revise is in line with the comment of the consultant, then you can have the inquiry. And of course, if there are no technical changes after inquiry, you can skip from a vote. So in the long term, this should result into an improvement of the timing. And also the exchange with the CCMC on the quality check, this must be a mutual cross-fertilization, a kind of education that we can provide you. Then, so this was answered live. Susan Minkwitz, now it seems that any new steps are within the time of working group as to work on the draft. When do you think this should happen? Exactly. Yeah, this is a correct comment. As we said, the steps takes place under stage A, and the steps of the quality check, pre-formal vote, and any possible LCA or other mean of resolution take place under stage E. That is for the technical body to work on the standard. But I hope that I clarified this before. I don't understand why the consultant receives document for assessment twice for inquiry. Can you explain again the logic? Frédéric.
Yes, I will take it. So So this is a question from Thomas Schreiber. Sorry if I misspelled your name. We see here indeed for the part A, so the drafting part before the inquiry, and here is the inquiry ballot. So indeed here the HAS consultant can receive the draft 2 times, but as we were saying earlier, so this is the CCMC quality check. Once the quality check performed, the technical body should take into account and address the comments from the CCMC quality check. Then this one is the mature draft assessment. So this is the first HAS assessment. Following the outcome of the HAS assessment, the technical body reworks the draft and then dispatch it to CCMC for the inquiry. If the mature draft assessment received a lack of compliant assessment, then the technical body will request an inquiry confirmatory assessment. It's this assessment here. If the mature draft assessment was compliant, then this inquiry confirmatory assessment is not needed, as the draft was good enough from the HAS consultant perspective. So again, indeed, 2 possible assessments at the inquiry stage. The first mandatory mature draft assessment, mandatory, and then if in case of lack of compliant assessment at mature draft, the inquiry confirmatory assessment to confirm that the TC sufficiently addressed the comments from the HAS consultants.
So basically, we expect that after inquiry, with this inquiry confirmatory assessment, we will have a number of positive assessments significantly increased. Then, Anthony Kirain, is there any process for feedback between CCMC and the TC for comment resolution? How are disputes handled? Meeting will take place like today. It's to be understood if you mean feedback after quality check or after the assessment. This must be.
So if you mean feedback following the quality check, then of course, following the quality check outcome, we can reply to questions from the TC. But if you mean comments following a HAS assessment, it's as today, there's the possibility following a lack of compliant assessment, for example, to request a meeting with the HAS consultant to discuss the comments and to clarify the comments received during the HAS assessment.
Like current practice.
Exactly, yes.
This is the right interpretation we gave to Anthony Kirain's question. The quality check seems to duplicate the HS assessment. This feels like a redundant process. It is not better to work more closely with the HS consultant to deliver a correct standard first time. Well, the quality check, as I explain, as Frédéric explained, is a different.
Yeah, so the purpose of the quality check, we will focus on horizontal aspects related to harmonized standard. And the goal here is really to help technical bodies identify critical elements that could potentially lead to a lack of compliant assessment. So we are there to support upfront the technical body and to help them identify critical issues, but horizontal issues linked to IR3, for example. When the HAS consultant is there to check, I would say, sectorial content, and technical content linked to the legislation. So I would say it's complementary. Both the CCMC quality check and the HAS assessment are complementary to help at the end the technical body come up with a compliant draft.
I don't know, by saying is it not better to work more closely with the HS consultant? Maybe Anthony means to have the consultant active in the working group. In any case, the contract between the Commission and Ernst Young is not structured in that way. So the consultant is seen as a person. That, go ahead, please.
And I will complement what Alberto was saying. So indeed, it's not possible for the HAS consultant to, between brackets, co-draft a standard. So he can assess a draft, give comments, but he cannot give his opinion. Where during the quality check, with the expertise the project managers have within CCMC, we can give you advices where the HAS consultants cannot help you. I'm not saying that the CCMC quality check will help you draft, but we will help you probably identify critical elements, and then the HAS consultant will go deeper in technical and sectorial content, I would say.
So, Pernille Eriksen, does the addition of quality check and mandatory assessment take into account the sometimes tight timelines in standard request? Yes, we are aware. This process may add weeks, but what you don't see today, when you read in the current process, when you read 8 weeks formal vote, in reality for harmonized standards, they are stuck. So it goes for months. You don't realize this from the process, but they are stuck here. And the deadlines are extended. Of course, all this is very challenging for all of us, because respecting tight deadlines and at the same time follow this kind of process is very challenging. On the other side, respecting deadlines and not having compliant standards is not satisfactory as well. But yes, Pernille, for sure this is a challenge. So the question on the judging with the standard lines with the requirements, we have already explained. We have already answered this question from Anthony K. Rains. Then we have an anonymous. Is it envisaged to provide a written summary of the new procedure? So last Friday, Else, are you still here? Yes, Else is still connected.
Yes, I'm here.
Last Friday, you sent an email to whom exactly? All registered or CENTC secretaries, chairs, CENELEC TC secretary chairs?
No, that email with a reminder went out to all CEN and CENELEC secretaries and chairpersons. Okay, so let's say all CEN TBOs should have received the email with the BT decision. The BT decision is structured in 4 annexes. One annex is the full description of the process that Frédéric gave you. Then there is this flowchart with these timelines. So all timelines are there. Then you have a functional process that is called the swim lane flowchart, where you will see all the let's say this is a simple view to explain the process, but in Annex 2, you will find the swim lane process with all ins and outs and what should happen if there is a lack of compliance, what is the next step? If it is compliant, where does it go? We hope that it's understandable. Of course, both pages will be updated. But last Friday, you should have received a documentation of 17 pages, I think. So please
And I will complement what Alberto just said. So the slides, the presentation that you see on screen will be shared as well today. And we will try to have a document that is simpler, shorter, that summarizes all the interactions with all the different timing. But we have to still work on it. And yeah, we should. But when we have something ready, we will share it with you.
Then Sabrina Mann. Sorry, I joined a few minutes late. Will the process be implemented in the submission interface to his work? Maybe we can go to the slide.
So yeah, it's yes and no actually. So it's a bit complex due to the novelty of the innovative process and due to the fact that the IT tools will need a deep upgrade. Today, the IT tools are not ready, and we are following a two-steps approach, as it was written in the BT decision that Alberto showed at the beginning of the webinar. So two-steps approach. The first step is now when we go for manual exchanges of documents using this inbox hsc@CENELEC.eu. So as a first step, we will exchange documents, notably for the quality check, by email. And then later on, as a second step, when the IT tools are ready, we will go through the submission interface. So today, it's kind of, we have two processes that are a bit in parallel, the new innovative process from the quality check that is manual. And then when you enter the inquiry phase, then you go back to the harmonized standard process where you have to go through the submission interface. But I have explained here in the slide, when you have to deliver the whatever document, it's explained how you should deliver them. So for example, here it's by email. And then for the inquiry part, it's through the submission interface. So it's explained here in the presentation that again will be shared after the webinar.
Then Antonio Monaco, if the new working form was before 1st of October, do you need also quality check for inquiry assessment? This is the final part of the presentation.
Yeah, we will come to it, Antonio.
We will come to it and we will answer live. Then Nora Friedrich, regarding option 1, negative assessment solved by TB without further assessment. So maybe you can go in. So we are in the pre-formal, after the pre-formal vote. Assessment. Exactly. You see, now we call it pre-formal vote because it does not take place just before formal vote, but still in a period where the technical body can rework on the standard to improve the standard. So maybe you can read it.
Yeah, so the question from Nora Frédéric, will the confirmation of the HAS consultant be added to the final publication package so that the desk officer knows that the negative assessment has been successfully solved? Gonzalo, the floor is yours.
Well, in this case, Fred, if we decide not to request an as assessment, then it will not have the confirmatory as assessment. If I understand well the question.
No, the question was more if we
solve it.
If we will have an officially resolve the assessment. That's how I understand the question.
But that's what I was saying, Fred. So as an outcome of option 1, if you decide to move on, then we don't have a new assessment request. That's my understanding.
Exactly, yes.
If you don't request an LCA, there is no other assessment possibility. So the standard, if the decision is in that direction, you will finalize the document without having this confirmatory assessment that I think this is what Nora is asking. So I think if you are in an unclear situation, the best alternative is to follow the option of the LCA as a last confirmation, as it is today.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
And as well, I would just add that whatever the option chosen by the TC, so here the TC should provide a reworked draft in track changes. So eventually, although we recommend going for an LCA if there's any uncertainty, but if for whatever reason the TC decides to not go for the LCA, the reworked draft in track changes could be used as a proof of the resolution. But formally, we don't have an official way to show that the lack of compliant assessment has been resolved. We don't have an official way. It's really on an ad hoc basis. So the recommendation indeed would be to go to an LCA for that.
Yeah, we tried, but the HS consultant cannot, should not, does not want, I don't know how to put it, put black and white, that the way we solved then makes the standard compliant. So in a way, is something that must be proved in the documentation. Yeah.
So for a question from Susan Mingwitz, sorry for the name if I say it wrong, but related to option 3, how can such a meeting be organized? By submitting a justification to CCMC by the TC, and what time is given for this? So for that, I will show again option 3. So it's the exceptional has concerted group. Yes. So I would say this is really to be considered as exceptional and on an ad hoc basis. So the best I would say would be to contact your CCMC project manager, and we will take it. We will take it from there.
What time is given for this? There is no time, but also the commission will understand that the clock will stop ticking.
Yeah.
Okay, Saskia Schulten, does the period for the new processes, K, so quality check, and I, max 70 weeks in stage A, max 30 weeks in stage A, be reduced from the max period for A and E together 68 weeks. So does it mean that DC only has 68 minus 17 minus 25? Yes, 25. Yeah. This is. I think also we have a question related to how to calculate the timing. It has been answered. I saw a question from Annemi. No, from Annette Van Dorn. Stage E is recommended 10 weeks, but the process from quality check to dispatch is max 25 weeks. Yeah, how is this possible? Yes, indeed. Planning 50 weeks for stage A will give you, let's say, will put technical bodies in, I don't know if I should say the word comfort situation, but at least you plan maybe more than what you need. At least you don't have any pressure to close, to submit the standards for 2099. Now, the principle of the flexible process is that if you plan 50 weeks under stage A, so if you plan a time under stage A, but you're able to deliver earlier, all the next step will be brought forward. So the editing from CCMC will start earlier, the translation will start earlier, the inquiry will start earlier, the start, so closure of the query will start earlier. What will not change is 4599. This date will remain, which means that stage E, that you will gain the time that you have saved under stage A, under stage E. So you are recommended to fix stage A 50 weeks. If you are able to deliver on time, considering that 17 weeks are for this ping pong. So basically you have 33 weeks to work under stage A. All the time more you can add to stage E. Could be, and stage E is 18 weeks by default, because if it is 50 under stage A, stage E is 18, because you remember the maximum time between the two stages is 68 weeks. You will gain time from what you saved under stage A, if any. If you don't gain time, you will go for a tolerance, 9 week of a tolerance. So this is a correct management approach where you are able to plan correctly your time under A and your time under E. Today, Gonzalo, as the production is here, the fulfillment of the respect of deadlines is very, very low. And this is a problem also for our production unit. In addition, Gonzalo, maybe you can even step in. Do you ever delete work items related to harmonized standards? Because I saw another question that we are going to put under pressure the technical body officer in order to meet the deadline.
I think, Alberto, so the technical boards have agreed that we should not delete any project related to harmonized standards. Of course, what we need to ensure is that, you know, we have an accurate project management for the relevant standards deliverables, also noting that the need to deliver them in line with the standardization requests. And I think a lot of the comments raised today, and people are aware of that, is that sometimes the assessment is also creating delays. I think this is also something that needs to be considered in the implementation of this innovative process, to consider whether then timeframes need to be adapted. But just to reinforce, and I think this is also what you said, Alberto, the idea is to keep the same timing approach, and of course there are possibilities to adapt. And if needed long term, if more time is needed, then this should be raised and discussed with the technical board.
Thank you, Gonzalo. I go ahead with the question. I see Gerard Bartak, where can the maximum times for several phases be taken? Okay, this has been explained. It is in a BT decision that you should have received last Friday. Of course, you didn't have the time maybe to read it, but all this has been crystallized in the BT decision. What is the meaning of 25x6 and 4599? Well, I hope that 4599 is a well-known deadline for you, is when you are supposed to dispatch the draft for the formal vote. 25x6 and a new 44x6. So these are the two novelty that we are going to create, and again, it's part of those IT improvements that has to happen. So you will not see them yet.
I will take a question from Sabrina Mann. In case of a negative assessment, when sending the assessment result to the technical body via email, could you please include the different options in the email? Yeah, she adds that the process is changing over time and it is hard to keep track. So I understand what you mean, Sabrina, but unfortunately, this is an automated message. So as soon as the assessment report is available at EY, they upload it on our platform. And then the technical body secretary receives an automatic email from CCMC with the attachment of the assessment report. So there's no human behind that is sending the assessment report and then can explain what are the different options. So I would invite you and the technical body officers to contact your CCMC project manager to ask and to discuss the possible and the best way forward following the assessment report that you receive. Thank you.
Yes, Bernd Bosler is asking setting dates for the TC working group after the quality check and the I phase, so the assessment, either a master draft or, I mean, the two mandatory assessment, either master draft or pre-formal vote. So the outcome means that the output will be provided just in time. That's true, especially if the 5 weeks such as consultant phase can very often not be met, unfortunately. How can we solve this? We can reiterate the Commission the need to respect the timeframes. Now, with the backlog and the disruption of the system, the 5 weeks are not respected.
No, so
before they were more or less on time, right?
Yes, indeed. So before the figures showed that during the previous contract about the delay, I mean the time the EY has to deliver an assessment report was more or less 35 days. They were on track. Now, under this new contract, due to the backlog, that is reducing. So the number of assessment of work items that are pending for assessment is reducing. But EY has still difficulties and is still struggling to reduce the waiting time for assessment reports to be delivered. It's improving, but in average, we are not yet at 35 days. And by the way, we have raised it to EY to highlight that we would need them to make an effort so that we go back to the contractual, actually, 35 days.
Okay. And of course, if the assessment arrives later than 5 weeks, this is one of the reasons for a delay that we can justify in front of the Commission. And Saskia Schulte, I think I already answered to the stress that will be on working group technical committee because of the tight limits. Concerning an email with 4 annexes, which was explained to have been sent last Friday, it appears that not all mentioned ones. So the working group conveners have not received. We will. I think it's only TC chairs, inviting TC chairs to spread the document within their working groups. We will double check if we have the email of all working group conveners. We should. So we can make a centralized something. Gonzalo, do you know if we have a mailing list with the working groups convener?
I don't think there is a dedicated list to all working group conveners.
No, I confirm we don't have that.
So in this case, please ask the TC secretaries to send the document here. Okay, we have 21 minutes to the end. We have still 4 slides to present, so we can still take some questions here. I can see 4 questions. Saskia Schulten, note to previous comment. I'm sure that this new process will help a lot, but I'm worried about the fact that this time is withdrawn from the development time until much progress. It will probably enlarge the number of premium work items, and the activation premium work item will be delayed until the working group is almost ready with the mature draft. Is that a good development? No, this should not happen. The premium work item has a very clear reason to be created. The standard has to be developed within the working groups and within technical committees, so after activation. And in any case, this will not help to meet the deadlines in the standard request, because deadline standard request, either you work on a premium work item or an active work item, the time will pass. So Frédéric used to be one of our editors, if I'm not mistaken. Frédéric Dufour. Hello, Frédéric. So,
Wait, yeah, I see that Gonzalo is typing an answer for the
Yeah.
question.
Gonzalo, take it online, please.
I was just confirming that, yes, indeed. So one of the elements that eventually will be checked in the quality check, and I think Fred already highlighted a few points, is indeed, if there is a requirement, linked to the presumption of conformity, this is essentially what as consultants are systematically checking and sometimes raising as an issue. And indeed, if there is reference to a normative reference, whether it's really a normative reference, and if actually you have a requirement in the standard to this normative reference, and of course, if there is a requirement, it should be reflected in clause 2. So those are indeed two of the examples of what could be checked.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Gonzalo.
Okay, very good. Then we have the only question is the question from Antonio, but this is exactly the next slide. So what will happen for the project that have already started? So basically those not launched as for approval, new work item approval as of 1st of October.
So yeah, sorry, the innovative process. So we are back to the presentation for the final slides. As we said, innovative process has been recently approved by BT. It will be mandatory as of October 1st for a new work item, but to already start having an impact and to already start helping technical bodies that are willing to participate are invited to request a quality check on drafts that did not reach yet 3099 and 4599, meaning that for drafts that are not yet submitted to inquiry 3099 and not yet submitted to formal vote 4599, the technical bodies that wish to have a CCMC quality check performed are invited to contact us by email at hsc@cenelec.eu, and we will be very happy to perform a quality check. That same should be performed within 15 working days, and then we will share the outcome of the quality check with those technical body, and we hope that we will greatly help in the drafting of those harmonized standards. So again, innovative process, mandatory for new work items approved as of October 1st, but we warmly invite the technical bodies that are willing to check their drafts that are not yet submitted for inquiry and formal vote to contact the Harmonized Standard Compliance team for a quality check on those drafts. And now we will conclude with some
the last
key
two slides
takeaways of this presentation. So again, we talked about it, but we will do it together with Alberto. So it will be like a discussion between us. So there are two different processes for homegrown standards and homegrown harmonized standards. Two processes that are different.
So this new process is mandatory for homegrown harmonized standards launched for approval as of 1st October 2023. As Frédéric said, quality check can be done on draft before inquiry and formal vote for all the other standards, because this new process, we are going to see maybe the first mature draft in 2024, but the technical boards want to see some improvements already in 2023, if possible. This process has been agreed with the European Commission. So what we have just shown has been agreed with the European Commission, they're on board. And also DG Energy has joined also decided to adopt this process, and I think this is very good news, because the eco design, especially in the field of eco design, we were in a very difficult situation. We have 4 assessments, like in the current process, but there are different timings and also purpose of this assessment. I think that you have understood that the modality and the timing of this assessment is completely different from the current way of working.
So as I was just explaining, for the main pillars of this new innovative process, there's the quality check that is done before the mature draft and the pre-formal vote draft to help technical bodies identify critical elements that could potentially lead to a lack of compliance. And then we think that the combination of the CCMC quality check and the assessment at the right timing should help technical bodies to reach, I would say, timely compliance before the end of the development. So really, I insist on the fact that today a lot of work items are blocked at the end of the development due to issues related to harmonization. And so the idea, the concept of this new innovative process is really to focus and to put the efforts at the beginning, early, by having the CCMC quality check, by having a mandatory mature draft to really help technical bodies reach compliance before the end of the process. Same thing again about the 2 steps approach. We discussed it. So at the beginning, unfortunately, we will have manual exchanges of documents with the technical body, between CCMC and the technical body, until the IT tools are updated and ready to be deployed.
Yes, then in the new work item form, you are recommended, so this is not an obligation, you are recommended by the technical boards to foresee enough time, so at least 50 weeks up to inquiry, 3099, and use the tolerance for stage E. Of course, the technical boards will monitor the success of this new process, and if it is not the case, will intervene. And very important, the process of those harmonized standards that are developed in parallel with the IC and ISO, this is under discussion in the CENELEC PT working group rules and process. At the beginning of October, in the brainstorming group with ISO and IC, so a new process also for these harmonized standards in parallel will be discussed, I would say, in the next weeks by the CENELEC technical boards for a new decision. And with this,
and I think so that was our last slide for the webinar itself. So those are some useful links we would like to share with you. Some webinars we organized last year that are very, very relevant specifically for this new innovative process. So there was a webinar organized related to drafting guidance. You have the link for CEN and CENELEC, and this webinar was focusing on the neutrality principle and on the use of normative references. So very interesting and very important webinar that could help you draft standards. Another link useful, it's not a webinar, but it's the guidance document on the use of normative references. You have the links to the CEN boss and to the CENELEC boss. And lastly, a webinar organized end of June, where I was together with Gonzalo, and where we presented the new ETHAS-IESO's common checklist. So again, that's the common checklist that was recently approved, that is used as a support document to perform the CCMC quality check, that the technical bodies shall send to us, shall fill in and include it in the package when they contact CCMC for the quality check and for the assessment request. And the same common checklist will be used by the HAS consultant to perform their assessments and to deliver their assessment request. And by the way, in 2 days, on Wednesday, there's a training dedicated to the HAS consultant where EY, together with the Commission and myself, I will be sharing some slides during the webinar. We will present the common checklist to the HAS consultant, and they will start using it as well as of October 1st. Voilà, that's it. So thanks again for your attention and your time. I will say, if you have any questions, so this is new for all of us. Let's take it as an ongoing process and a possibility to make it evolve and to improve it. Let's take it as continuous improvement. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact your CCMC project manager and or contact HSC, so the Harmonized Standard Compliance team. Myself and my team will be very happy to answer your questions and to support you. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Frédéric and Alberto as well. I've just launched a feedback poll, so I would like to remaining attendees, I would like to ask them to fill in that feedback poll that we will use to improve our future webinars. So it's just 3 questions that we kindly ask you to reply and which we will take on board for the future. I think on the last slide, we still would like to remind people of our upcoming webinars and events that can be of use for their work. I'm not going to go through them all, but they're all hyperlinked. So you, as I promised, you will receive this presentation in your inbox later today, which gives you the possibility to register for one of these events. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Alberto, Frédéric, and also Gonzalo for your input, and hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.